Okay, so we've seen we have uncaught exceptions. So uncaught exceptions, we have our thing that's happening and an exception occurs. So this little slug, Burpee, an exception occurs and he's gone, right? Didn't catch him. He's not there. But what we really want to happen is when we have our Burpee exception is we want to try our Burpee and then he happens and we catch it, right? So we want to catch our things. So try, catch, and we don't want to drop them. And we want them to exist through here. So the try catch statement is the way that we go about doing this. So to handle an exception in a program in a graceful manner, we can use what's known as a try block. And a lot of programming languages have this idea. They have a try block. And essentially we say, I want to try this. And if something goes wrong, right, Burpee doesn't work, right, something will happen, and we catch it, right? So we've got to sort of know what's going to go wrong, and then we have to catch it. So we try, and we catch. And the bit of code that's in the catch clause is known as an exception handler in here. So when the exception occurs, processing continues at the first catch clause that matches that exception type. And in Java, there's an exception hierarchy that we have, and so it's the one that first matches throughout that hierarchy in there. All right, so this is the try statement. So here's an example of product codes that we have. So this is a program, it reads in from system.in, as we can see here, and so system.in, it reads it, comes from the keyboard, comes from a user, things can happen, right? So we're expecting, count the number of product codes that are entered with the zone R and a district greater than 2000, right? But people might enter in the wrong thing. So enter it in, get the next line. That's where the problem is going to occur. So we get this code here, and we have a while loop, so it keeps going until they enter stop, a bit like what you may have done in a prac. And then it has a try. So it's this part here is the bit we want to try. So we want to try this bit here. Let's have a look at this code. Where do you think an error or an exception or something could go wrong here? All right, pause me. What do you reckon? What did you think? Did you pause me? And so there's a few bits here. There's some maybe a bit of hints down the bottom here. So this is our try bit. All right, so we're trying this. So something in here could go wrong. There's a few things. So this code.charat, this could potentially throw some sort of index out of bounds. So code's a string, we're trying to find a character at a particular position. We could go outside those bounds there. So code might be too short. We're doing a substring. That might not be the right characters. There's integer.parseInt. That could cause a problem. Maybe it's not an int. But it's a good question. How do you know? How would you find out? So the code's sort of written here, right? Things do happen, but how would you find out? So if we go back to our API here, right? These are all the exceptions that can occur, but they don't tell you how they occur or who throws them. So how would we find out? We could go to Stack Overflow. Could work. Or we could actually go to the API of the methods that we're using. So we've got code.charat, we've got this integer.parseInt. Let's have a look at that one. So integer.parseInt in here. So we'll have a search for Java API 8. What are we looking for? Integer. So we'll find integer. There he is. And we will have a look at integer. Find the method called parseInt string. Yes, that's the one we're using. And if we have a look at the comments here, very well written documentation here. Let's parse unsigned in. Where's parseInt? parseInt is here. and we can see it says throws number format exception. And it's got a description down here. It says number format exception if the string does not contain a parsable integer. This will happen, right? So that's how we find out. We look at it. We could just try and run it, but and see what happens. But we can find that out. And so now we know that this parseInt may throw a number format exception. In the code we write, we can catch it. So we can write an exception handler. And this is what this bit here is, right? It's an exception handler for the integer.parseInt part here. And we can deal with that. So the way this program works is we have a code.char at 9. That could be out of bounds. And so it's an improper code length. Catches that, comes back down, gets a new line, and comes back up and tries again. So the way it handles this incorrect input so the program doesn't crash is it asks again for the information around it goes. If the code doesn't have a proper number in it at the right spot, it will have district is not numeric, gives out a nice piece of information and asks again. So this will give us a way to handle incorrect input into our program. So we jump over to our little program over here. And I'll run it. Let's run this. We're getting some user input. The user enters 0, and we get this exception occurring. Our program is crashing out because we're not handling it. So we want to handle our exception here. All right, so we can, in Java, look at this and find out exactly where it happened. There it is on this line. And this is the bit we want to try. So we can put a try block around our piece of code here. And the try can't just be a try by itself. We need to, okay, we're just trying, but we need to catch it, right? So we need to catch. And Java's nice. It tells us what the exception is. So I can take this exception, pop it here, AFE, a arithmetic exception. So that's the type of exception that's occurring. So I'm doing this operation, and this is how I catch the one I want to catch. What the class name is plus this one here. And then I handle it. I do something. I say something. So system, let's go with system.out. You entered a 0. Why did you do that? So now I've got this text will not be printed. If I run this, hopefully we'll get to the end. Let's find out. So F6, we'll run it. I hit my 0, and I get before the attempt divided by 0, you enter a 0. Or maybe I should use good English. You entered a 0. Why did you do that? This text will not be printed. So now we're starting to handle our exception in some way. If I grab this bit of code here, let's move that up to this point. In fact, let's put both of these into my try catch into here. So the try, I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to run it. What will be printed out for this part here? All right, pause me again. What will be printed out? Before the attempt, this text will not be printed. You entered a 0, what will be printed? Let's find out. 0. So it says before the attempt, and then straight to you entered 0 here. So this line of code is not being printed out at this point. So if we think about our diagram over here, we have the divide by 0 occurring. We've got the text will not be printed, but our other bit of text, which was you entered a 0, is down here. You entered a 0. So we have our 10 divided by 0, our arithmetic exception, but this time we are actually catching it. So we're handling that. And, well, in fact, this bit here is, let's get rid of that. You entered 0 is on the exception flow. And then our execution flow goes from here back to here and skips over this text will not be printed in this case. So our path of execution through here is going from our 10 divided by 0, which raises the arithmetic exception. We catch it, we do something useful, and then return back to here. And this part is not executed, right? It's missed out. So if we so we are returning back to normal execution. This is the end. If I run this piece of code, we get before the attempt, you entered 0, why did you do that? And then the end. So we are coming back to here. So this is the end. All right, so it's coming back in between here. So we do come back to the normal execution flow. So momentarily, we jump over to the exception flow, handle that exception somehow, and then come back to the normal execution flow through here. So we've got these different flows through here. So through here, we can see we go from, we start here, we execute this part, then execution jumps over there and down to here, does this bit, and then returns back to our normal execution. But we do not execute this line of code through here. All right, so we're jumping in and out of these different execution flows. The exception flow and the normal execution flow. So the